You probably know someone who is extremely intelligent with money. They understand investing. They know how interest works. They've read the books. They can explain inflation, compound growth, diversification, and risk. And yet, somehow, they still make terrible financial decisions. They buy things they don't need. They stay in jobs they hate because their lifestyle depends on the paycheck. They panic when markets fall. They ignore obvious financial problems until they become emergencies, and sometimes they make a decision they know is irrational while they're making it. That's the strange part. If intelligence were enough to make good financial decisions, smart people should be unusually good with money. But they aren't always, because money doesn't usually defeat people by giving them difficult math problems. It defeats them by giving them emotionally difficult choices. And intelligence can actually make those choices more complicated, because a smart person doesn't just have the ability to make a good argument. They have the ability to make an extremely convincing argument for a bad decision. Imagine someone earns $120,000 a year. They know they should save more. They know lifestyle inflation is dangerous. They know a $700 monthly car payment isn't necessary. But then they start explaining it. I work hard. I can afford it. I'd been driving the same car for years. The interest rate isn't that bad. I'll probably earn more next year. Every statement might be technically reasonable. Together, they create a story that makes the decision feel rational. And that's the first uncomfortable truth about intelligence and money. Your intelligence doesn't just help you solve problems. It can help you defend the decisions you already want to make. Psychologists sometimes describe this kind of reasoning as motivated reasoning. Instead of starting with the question, what is true? We sometimes start with, what do I want to be true? Then we use our reasoning ability to build a bridge between the two. Money is particularly vulnerable to this because financial decisions rarely feel like pure mathematics. They touch identity, status, security, freedom, family, fear, and the desire to feel like you're progressing. That's why someone can understand compound interest perfectly and still spend every raise. The problem isn't that they don't understand the concept. The problem is that understanding something intellectually doesn't mean you will behave according to it emotionally. We all have two different systems operating inside financial decisions. One thinks in years. The other thinks in moments. The long-term version of you wants retirement security. The version of you standing in a showroom wants the car. The long-term version wants a larger emergency fund. The version of you exhausted after a difficult week wants relief. The long-term version understands that markets fluctuate. The version of you watching your portfolio fall 20% wants to do something immediately. Both versions feel intelligent. Only one is thinking about consequences that haven't happened yet. And this is where being smart can become dangerous. Because intelligent people are often good at imagining future possibilities. That sounds like an advantage. Sometimes it is, but it can also create a problem called complexity. Instead of making one clear decision, you can imagine 50 possible outcomes. What if interest rates fall? What if the market crashes? What if housing prices rise? What if I lose my job? What if I wait? What if I buy now? What if this investment is actually undervalued? Suddenly, a simple decision becomes a research project. And the more information you consume, the more sophisticated your uncertainty becomes. You haven't necessarily become wiser. You've just become better at explaining why you still don't know what to do. This is one reason smart people can procrastinate financially. Not because they don't care, because they care so much that they want the decision to be perfect. But money rarely offers perfect decisions. It offers decisions under uncertainty, and that's a completely different skill. Consider investing. A person may spend months researching the perfect investment strategy. They compare funds. They study historical returns. They read about economic cycles. They watch experts disagree. They build spreadsheets. And meanwhile, their money remains in cash. Another person chooses a simple diversified strategy and keeps investing consistently. The first person may know more. The second person may end up doing better, not because the second person is smarter, because they were able to act without needing certainty. That's an important distinction. Financial success often depends less on knowing the right answer than on being able to tolerate not knowing the answer perfectly. And uncertainty isn't the only trap. There's also ego. Smart people are often rewarded for being right. School rewards correct answers. Work rewards expertise. Arguments reward strong reasoning. But investing in personal finance can punish the same mindset. Markets don't care how intelligent you are. Your mortgage doesn't care how persuasive your reasoning is. Your credit card doesn't care whether you understand behavioral economics. Reality doesn't give extra points for having a sophisticated explanation. This can make financial mistakes especially painful for intelligent people, because admitting I was wrong isn't just admitting that a transaction went badly. It can feel like admitting that your judgment failed. So instead of selling an investment that no longer makes sense, you hold it. Instead of admitting the house is too expensive, you tell yourself you'll make it work. Instead of changing careers, you keep going because you've already invested years into the path. The decision stops being about money. It becomes about protecting your identity. And that's where another psychological force appears. Sunk cost. You've already spent the money. You've already spent the time. You've already told people about the plan. You've already built your identity around it. Walking away feels like losing everything. But sometimes walking away is exactly how you stop losing. The money already spent is gone. The years already invested cannot be recovered. The only thing you control is what happens next. This is one of the hardest financial lessons because it requires something intelligence doesn't automatically provide. Humility. You have to be willing to say, I understand why I made that decision, and it was still wrong. That sentence can save you a tremendous amount of money. But there's another problem smart people face. They often optimize for what can be measured. Salary, returns, net worth. Mortgage rates, investment fees. Tax brackets, those numbers matter. But some of the most important financial variables don't appear neatly on a spreadsheet. How much stress does this lifestyle create? How dependent am I on my current job? How much freedom would I have if my income disappeared? How much time does this purchase consume? How fragile is my monthly budget? How much uncertainty can I absorb? Two people can have identical incomes and completely different levels of financial security. One might have high fixed expenses and no flexibility. The other might have modest expenses and substantial savings. The spreadsheet may say they're equally successful. Their lives say otherwise, and this leads to the mental model that makes the rest of this easier to understand. Good financial decisions aren't simply decisions that maximize money. They're decisions that increase your future options. That changes how you think about almost everything. An expensive house might increase your comfort. But it can also reduce your ability to move. A higher paying job might increase your income. But if it makes you dependent on a lifestyle you can't leave, it may reduce your freedom. An investment might offer higher potential returns. But if the volatility is so uncomfortable that you sell at the worst possible moment, the theoretical return doesn't matter much. The smartest decision isn't always the one with the highest expected reward. Sometimes it's the one you can actually live with. This is why financial margin matters so much. Margin is what separates a difficult event from a financial crisis. A few months of savings. Reasonable fixed expenses. Manageable debt. Insurance where appropriate. Diversified investments. Skills that can produce income. A lifestyle that doesn't require every paycheck to arrive on time. None of these things are particularly exciting. But they create something intelligence alone cannot provide. Resilience. And resilience changes behavior. If you have no margin, every financial decision feels urgent. If you have margin, you can think. That difference matters, because urgency makes people short-term. When you're financially cornered, the future becomes abstract. You focus on the next bill, the next paycheck, the next problem. But when you have breathing room, you can make decisions based on years instead of days. And perhaps that's the deeper reason smart people sometimes make terrible money decisions. They aren't failing to understand money. They're allowing emotion, identity, ego, complexity, or urgency to determine when that knowledge gets used. You can know exactly how unhealthy a habit is and still want it. You can understand the math and still feel fear. You can recognize a bad decision and still want the story that justifies it. That's not stupidity. That's being human. The goal isn't to become perfectly rational. That's impossible. The goal is to build a financial life that doesn't require perfect rationality from you every day. Automate the important things. Keep enough margin that one bad month doesn't become a catastrophe. Create rules before emotions arrive. Avoid commitments that require your income to rise forever. And when you're making a major financial decision, ask one question that intelligence often overlooks. If I am wrong, what happens? Not just, how much can I make? But, how badly can this hurt me? How much flexibility will I lose? Will I still be okay if my assumptions don't come true? That question changes the entire decision, because intelligence tends to focus on possibilities. Wisdom also considers consequences. And maybe that's the uncomfortable truths about money. You don't need to outsmart every market. You don't need to predict every recession. You don't need to understand every financial product. You need to become difficult to destroy with one bad decision, because financial security isn't the ability to always be right. It's having enough margin that being wrong doesn't ruin your life. And maybe that's why the smartest financial decision sometimes looks almost embarrassingly simple. Spend a little less than you could. Save before you feel like you have enough. Invest without needing to predict tomorrow. Walk away when the numbers stop making sense. And don't let your intelligence become the lawyer defending a decision your future self will have to pay for. Because being smart can help you understand money, but knowing when not to trust your own reasoning can help you keep it,